The morning sun rose over New Hanseong, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Tay stood at the edge of the colony, a small backpack slung over one shoulder. Beside the child sat Badger, a honey badger with thick gray and white fur. The animal's small eyes watched the forest ahead with intense focus. "Come on, Badger. Mom needs these samples before lunch," Tay said. The honey badger made a low huffing sound and followed. They walked together into the forest, moving between tall trees with purple leaves. This world was different from Earth, but humans had made it home. Farms stretched across the valleys. Children played in the streets. Life was peaceful here. Tay's mother, Dr. Han Sora, worked as a xenobiologist. She studied the plants and animals of this new world. Today she needed soil samples from the deep forest. Tay volunteered to help. It was better than sitting in class learning about old Earth history. Badger sniffed the ground, his nose twitching. The honey badger was smart, much smarter than people expected. 2 years ago, Sora had rescued him from a breeding facility that was treating animals badly. The facility was shut down, and several animals needed homes. When Sora brought Badger to the colony, everyone warned her. Honey badgers were dangerous. They were known for their bad tempers and fearless nature. They fought snakes, lions, and anything else that bothered them. But Badger took one look at Tay and something changed. The animal became gentle around the child. He followed Tay everywhere. He slept at the foot of Tay's bed. He protected the child from anything he thought was dangerous, even if it was just the neighbor's cat. "You're my best friend," Tay said, reaching down to scratch behind Badger's ears. The honey badger closed his eyes and made a pleased sound. They walked deeper into the forest. Tay collected soil samples, putting them carefully into containers. Badger explored nearby, digging in the dirt and investigating interesting smells. The forest was quiet except for the sounds of alien birds singing in the trees. Then Badger stopped. His body went stiff. A low growl came from his throat. "What is it?" Tay asked. The honey badger moved toward a cluster of rocks. Tay followed, curious. Behind the rocks, hidden under some branches, was a small metal box. It had blinking lights on one side. Tay had never seen anything like it before. "That's not from the colony," Tay whispered. The child pulled out a small scanner from the backpack. It was a simple device that Sora used to identify unknown objects. Tay pointed it at the metal box. The scanner beeped urgently. The screen showed words that made Tay's stomach turn cold. Surveillance device. Origin, unknown. Someone was watching the colony. Tay grabbed the communicator from the backpack. Before the child could call for help, the air around them began to shimmer. Badger snarled and moved in front of Tay, his teeth showing. The shimmer became a bright blue field of energy that surrounded them both. Tay couldn't move. The energy field held the child frozen in place. Badger thrashed and fought, but even his legendary strength couldn't break through. Above them, the sky darkened. A massive ship appeared, dropping down through the clouds. It was nothing like human ships. This one was black and covered in sharp angles. It looked like something built for war. The energy field lifted them off the ground. Tay and Badger rose into the air, pulled toward the ship. The child's heart pounded. Badger's angry growls got louder and more desperate. They passed through an opening in the bottom of the ship and landed on a metal floor. Creatures surrounded them. They stood on 2 legs like humans, but that was where the similarity ended. They had gray skin covered in scales. Their faces were long with too many teeth. Yellow eyes stared at Tay and Badger with cold interest. Each creature wore armor and carried weapons. "Specimen secured," one of them said in a harsh voice. "Juvenile human and 1 small mammal." The energy field released them. Tay fell to the floor, gasping. Badger immediately attacked the nearest creature, leaping at its leg. The honey badger's teeth sank into the alien's armor. The creature yelled and kicked, but Badger held on tight. "Remove the animal," another creature shouted. "Place it in containment." 3 aliens grabbed Badger with long poles that had loops at the end. They pulled the honey badger away from Tay. Badger fought every second, twisting and snarling. His claws raked across their armor. His teeth snapped at anything close enough. "No!"
"Don't hurt him!"
Tay screamed. The aliens ignored the child. They dragged Badger down a corridor. The last thing Tay saw was the honey badger's angry eyes still fighting against the restraints. 2 aliens grabbed Tay's arms. They pulled the child in a different direction, through corridors made of dark metal. Everything smelled wrong, like oil and chemicals. They stopped at a small room with transparent walls. The aliens pushed Tay inside and the door sealed shut with a hiss. Tay ran to the transparent wall and pounded on it. "Let me out." "Where's Badger? What do you want?" One of the aliens leaned close to the wall. Its yellow eyes studied Tay like the child was some kind of interesting bug. "Your colony will surrender to the Vex Collective," it said. "We have you. We have the animal. Your people will give us what we want or you will suffer. Humans are weak. You care too much about your young. This makes you easy to control." The alien walked away, leaving Tay alone in the cell. The child stood there, breathing hard, thinking fast. Uncle Kai had taught survival skills to all the colony children. He always said that panic was the enemy. Fear could freeze you, but if you kept your mind clear, you could find a way out of anything. Tay looked around the cell. It was small, maybe 3 meters on each side. The walls were transparent except for the door. Outside, aliens walked back and forth, checking screens and talking in their harsh language. None of them paid much attention to the child in the cell. That was their first mistake. Tay sat down on the floor and started counting. The child counted the aliens that passed by, counted how many seconds between patrol groups, counted the lights on the control panels across the corridor. Information was power. Uncle Kai taught that too. Somewhere on this ship, Badger was trapped. The honey badger would be scared and angry. But Tay knew something these aliens didn't know, something that would make all the difference. Badger didn't give up. Ever. And neither would Tay. The child pressed a hand against the transparent wall and whispered, "Hold on, friend. We're going to get out of here together." Captain Kai Wu stood in the command center of New Hanseong Colony, staring at the communication screen. His hands gripped the edge of the console so hard his knuckles turned white. On the screen, a Vex commander looked back at him with cold yellow eyes. "You have 24 hours to accept our terms," the Vex said. His name was Draxel, and he spoke with the confidence of someone who believed he had already won. "We want mining rights to your northern territory. We want free passage through your space, and we want 50 of your people to work in our facilities." "That's slavery," Kai said, his voice hard. "That is survival," Draxel replied. "We have your child. We have others we can take. Surrender now, and the young one returns unharmed. Resist and you will regret it." The screen went dark. Kai slammed his fist on the console. Around him, other colony leaders stood in shocked silence. They had known the Vex were watching them. There had been signs, small disturbances, but they never expected a direct attack. Dr. Han Sora pushed through the crowd. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp with anger. "We need to plan a rescue," she said. "Any rescue attempt could get Tay killed," one of the council members said. "Maybe we should negotiate." "Negotiate?" Sora's voice rose. "They want to enslave our people." Kai held up a hand. "Everyone calm down. Sora is right. We don't negotiate with kidnappers. But we also need to be smart. The Vex have superior firepower. Their ship has shields we can't break through easily. We need time to plan." Sora moved closer to her brother. She spoke quietly so only he could hear. "Kai, they have Badger too." "I know. They put him in some kind of animal containment unit. They scanned him and classified him as a harmless pet." For the first time since the crisis started, Kai felt something that might have been hope. He looked at his sister and saw the same expression on her face. "They don't know what a honey badger is," he said slowly. "No, they don't." Kai pulled up the Vex communication logs on his console. He found the scanning report for Badger. The Vex sensors had measured the honey badger's size, weight, and basic biology. They noted his teeth and claws but rated them as minimal threat. The report concluded, "Small mammalian companion. Standard containment sufficient." "They think he's like a cat or a dog," Sora said. "This could work in our favor," Kai said. "If Badger gets loose." "It's not if. It's when." Sora pulled up data on her tablet showing videos from Earth. Old footage of honey badgers fighting cobras, ripping through metal fences, and escaping from reinforced enclosures. Badger is young and he's been domesticated somewhat. But that instinct is still there. If he thinks Tay is in danger, nothing will stop him. Kai nodded. "We still need a rescue plan, but maybe, just maybe, we'll have help from the inside." On the Vex flagship, Tay sat in the cell and waited. Hours passed. Aliens walked by, checking screens and talking. None of them looked at the child anymore. Tay had become part of the background, not worth their attention. That was their second mistake. Tay had been watching and learning. The control panel across from the cell had a sequence of buttons the aliens pressed to open doors. The same sequence every time. The child memorized it. The patrol groups passed by every 12 minutes. That was enough time to do something if the door opened. But first, Tay needed to know where Badger was. The child had heard him earlier, his angry snarls echoing through the ship's corridors. The sound came from the left, maybe 2 levels down. The ship's layout was confusing, but Tay was building a mental map. Footsteps approached. 2 Vex guards stopped outside the cell. They were talking to each other in their language. One of them looked at Tay and made a sound that might have been laughter. The human looked scared, one guard said, switching to the common galactic language. Good, fear makes them cooperative. Tay did look scared. The child made sure of it. Wide eyes, trembling hands, hunched shoulders. Let them think they were winning. Let them think Tay was helpless. The guards moved on. Tay waited until they were out of sight, then stood up and examined the cell more carefully. The transparent walls were strong, probably reinforced with energy fields. But the door had a physical seal. If the power went out even for a second, that door might open. Down in the containment area, Badger paced in his cell. The honey badger had stopped snarling hours ago. Now he was thinking. The cage was made of metal bars with energy fields between them. The bars were thick, but Badger had chewed through thick things before. The energy fields hurt when he touched them, but pain had never stopped a honey badger. A Vex guard walked past Badger's cell. The guard carried a long stick with electricity crackling at the end. He poked it through the bars, trying to make Badger react. The honey badger watched him with dark, calm eyes. "Stupid animal," the guard muttered, making all that noise earlier. "Be quiet now or I'll teach you a lesson." Badger didn't move. He just watched. And waited. The guard got bored and walked away. As soon as he was gone, Badger went back to work. He had found a spot where the metal bar connected to the floor. The weld was strong but not perfect. Badger began to chew at it, his powerful jaws working patiently. It would take time. Honey badgers were very good at taking their time. In the command center of the Vex ship, Draxel studied reports from his crew. The human colony had not responded to his demands yet. No matter, they would surrender. They always did. Humans were soft. They valued individual lives too much. It made them weak. "Commander," one of his officers said, "the animal in containment is still being aggressive." "Have the guards discipline it," Draxel said without looking up. "Sir, they tried. The animal doesn't respond to pain stimuli the way other creatures do." Draxel waved a clawed hand dismissively. "Then ignore it. It's just a pet. Focus on preparing for the colony's surrender." The officer hesitated. "Sir, should we research what species the animal is? Our databases have limited information on Earth creatures. Why waste time? It's contained. It's harmless. We have more important concerns." That was their biggest mistake. The officer left to return to his duties. He was curious about the strange animal, though. During his break, he accessed the ship's database and searched for information about Earth mammals. He found thousands of species. He narrowed the search by size and appearance. Finally, he found it. Honey badger. The officer began reading. His eyes widened. He read faster, his breathing quickening. Videos played on his screen showing these creatures fighting animals 3 times their size. Reports detailed their incredible pain tolerance, their aggressive nature, their legendary determination. "No," the officer whispered. "No, no, no." He stood up, knocking his chair backwards. He ran toward the command center. Draxel needed to know. They had made a terrible error, but he was already too late. In the containment area, the guard decided to teach the honey badger a lesson after all. The animal had been scraping at the cage floor for hours, making an annoying sound. The guard opened the cell door just enough to reach in with his shock stick. Badger had been waiting for this moment. The second the door opened, the honey badger exploded into motion. He was through the gap before the guard could react. His teeth sank into the alien's leg right where the armor had a gap at the knee joint. The guard screamed. Badger didn't let go. His jaws were designed to crack thick bones. Alien armor was nothing. 2 more guards rushed over. Badger released the first guard and launched himself at the second. Claws raked across the alien's face. Teeth found the throat. The creature went down, choking and bleeding. The third guard fired a shock weapon. The electrical bolt hit Badger directly. The honey badger stumbled but didn't fall. His thick skin and dense muscle protected him. He shook his head and charged again. Alarms began to sound throughout the ship. Red lights flashed in the corridors. An automated voice announced in the Vex language, "Containment breach. Level 5. All security personnel respond." In the cell, Tay heard the alarms and smiled. The child stood up and moved to the transparent wall. "That's my friend," Tay said quietly. "And he's very, very angry." Badger ran through the corridors of the Vex ship like a furry tornado. His claws clicked on the metal floors as he moved. Behind him, 3 Vex guards lay injured, and alarms screamed throughout the vessel. The honey badger's nose was filled with Tay's scent. He knew exactly where his human was, and nothing would stop him from getting there. A security door slid shut in front of him. Badger didn't slow down. He hit the door with his shoulder, testing its strength. It was solid metal, thick and heavy. Any normal animal would have given up. Badger began to dig at the bottom edge where the door met the floor. His claws were designed for digging through hard African soil. Ship metal was actually easier. 6 more guards arrived, weapons raised. They fired shock bolts at the honey badger. The electricity crackled around Badger's body. He felt it, and it hurt, but pain was something honey badgers learned to ignore. One of the guards got too close, trying to capture Badger with a restraint pole. The honey badger turned and lunged. His teeth closed on the pole, and he yanked hard, pulling the guard off balance. Before the alien could recover, Badger was climbing up the pole like it was a tree branch. He reached the guard's arm and bit down hard. The guard dropped the pole and ran, bleeding. The others backed away, their confidence shaking. This small creature was supposed to be harmless. Their scans had said so. But scans didn't show determination. They didn't measure fury. And they definitely didn't capture the spirit of an animal that simply refused to quit. In the command center, Draxel watched the security footage with growing disbelief. The small mammal was tearing through his ship. Trained soldiers were retreating from something that weighed maybe 15 kilograms. It was impossible. It was humiliating. "What is that thing?" he demanded. The officer who had been researching finally arrived, breathing hard from running. "Sir, I found information. It's called a honey badger. They're from Earth. Sir, they're rated as one of the most fearless animals on the planet. They fight lions. They eat venomous snakes. They can't be kept in normal enclosures because they always find a way out." Draxel stared at the screen. The honey badger had given up on the security door and found a ventilation shaft. The creature squeezed through an opening that looked far too small for its body. Within seconds, it disappeared into the ship's internal systems. "Find it," Draxel ordered. "Seal all ventilation access points. Use gas if you have to." "Sir, their biology report says they have extremely high resistance to toxins. They regularly eat poisonous snakes with no ill effects." "Then use fire. Use explosives. Use whatever works." "Sir, if we damage the ventilation system, we could compromise life support for the entire ship." Draxel's claws dug into his command chair. He had captured hundreds of species across dozens of worlds. He had fought in wars and won territories for the Vex Collective. And now he was being defeated by a pet. Badger crawled through the ventilation shafts, following Tay's scent. The ducts were cramped and dark, but that didn't bother him. He had squeezed through tighter spaces before. The metal was cool against his belly as he moved forward. Sometimes he heard Vex guards on the other side of the walls, shouting orders to each other. They were trying to predict where he would come out. They didn't understand. He wasn't trying to escape. He was trying to reach Tay. A grate appeared ahead. Badger pushed against it with his snout. It was bolted down tight. He bit the metal and pulled. The bolts held. Badger repositioned himself, got his claws under the edge, and pushed with all his strength. Honey badgers had incredibly strong necks and shoulders for their size. The grate bent, then popped free. Badger squeezed through the opening and dropped down into another corridor. 4 Vex guards were waiting. They had predicted this route. They formed a circle around the ventilation opening, weapons ready. When Badger dropped down, they all fired at once. The shock bolts hit from multiple directions. Badger's body seized up from the electrical charge. He fell to the floor, muscles twitching. The guards moved closer, cautious but confident. They had finally stopped the creature. Badger lay still for 3 seconds. Then he stood up, shook himself, and charged the nearest guard. The alien's eyes went wide with fear. Its weapon clattered to the floor as Badger hit its leg like a furry missile. The guard went down. Badger was already moving to the next one, then the next. Within 30 seconds, all 4 guards were on the ground, retreating or unconscious. The honey badger continued down the corridor. He was getting close now. Tay's scent was stronger. 2 more levels up, 1 section to the left. Badger found a maintenance shaft and began climbing. His claws dug into the metal ladder rungs, pulling himself up with steady determination. In the cell, Tay heard the chaos getting closer. The sounds of alarms, running feet, and occasionally Badger's distinctive snarl echoed through the ship. The guards who usually walked past the cell were gone, all called away to deal with the containment breach. The child stood at the transparent wall, waiting for the right moment. A massive explosion shook the ship. Somewhere below, Badger had found the ship's power relay station. The honey badger didn't understand electrical systems, but he understood that destroying things might help. He had chewed through several large cables before the power surge caused an overload. Emergency lights kicked on throughout the ship. Several systems went offline for rebooting, including some of the energy fields on the detention level. Tay's cell door clicked. The magnetic seal released for just 2 seconds before the backup power engaged. But 2 seconds was enough. The child pushed the door open and slipped out into the corridor. Freedom felt like electricity in Tay's veins. Uncle Kai's training kicked in. Move fast, stay quiet, find weapons, find allies. The corridor was empty. Tay ran toward the sound of Badger's chaos. The child turned a corner and nearly ran into a Vex guard. The alien was just as surprised. He reached for his weapon, but Tay was faster. The child had picked up a piece of broken metal from the floor. It wasn't much of a weapon, but aimed at the right place, it worked. Tay struck the alien's hand, knocking the weapon free, then ran past before the guard could recover. More corridors. More turns. The ship was like a maze, but Tay followed the sound of destruction. Finally, the child reached a junction where 3 corridors met, and there in the center, covered in strange alien fluids and breathing hard, was Badger. The honey badger saw Tay and immediately calmed. His aggressive stance relaxed. He made a soft chirping sound, the noise he always made when greeting his human. Tay dropped to one knee and Badger rushed over, pressing against the child's legs. "Good boy," Tay whispered, scratching behind Badger's ears. "Such a good, brave boy." For a moment they just stood there, reunited. Then Tay's mind shifted back to the mission. They were still on an enemy ship. They were still in danger, and the colony was still being threatened. "We need to finish this," Tay said to Badger. The honey badger looked up with dark eyes that seemed to understand. "We need to make sure they never threaten our home again." Tay stood and looked around. There were signs on the walls in the Vex language, but also universal pictograms that showed different sections of the ship. One symbol caught Tay's attention, a picture that represented weapon storage. An idea began to form in the child's mind. It was risky, was probably crazy, but it might work. "Come on," Tay said. "We're not done yet." They moved through the ship together, child and honey badger heading toward the armory. Behind them, Vex guards slowly regrouped, trying to organize a response. But their coordination was broken. Fear had spread through the crew. Some refused to engage the small Earth creature that had defeated so many of their colleagues. Others simply didn't know what to do against an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with or intimidated. Commander Draxel watched his ship descend into chaos and realized he had made a catastrophic error. Not just in underestimating the animal, but in underestimating the humans themselves. These weren't weak prey species. They were something far more dangerous. They were creatures who turned the galaxy's most fearless predators into loyal companions. They were beings who taught their children to survive, to adapt, to never surrender. And now, those traits were about to cost him everything. On the security feeds, he watched the human child and the honey badger disappear into the armory section. Alarms indicated that weapons were being accessed. Draxel felt a chill run down his spine. What was the child planning? Whatever it was, he had a terrible feeling that his ship, his crew, and the entire Vex operation in this sector was about to change forever. The armory doors hung open. Damage from Badger's earlier rampage through that section. Tay stepped inside with the honey badger close behind. Weapons lined the walls in organized racks. Most were too large for a child to use properly, but Tay wasn't looking for weapons. The child was looking for tools. There, on a workbench against the far wall, sat exactly what was needed. A portable engineering kit, the kind used for quick repairs on ship systems. Tay grabbed it and started searching through the contents. Wire cutters, power couplers, bypass chips, and a data pad that showed basic ship schematics. Perfect. Badger sat nearby, cleaning his claws with his tongue. He was calm now, staying close to Tay. The honey badger's dark eyes watched the door, alert for any threats. His fur was matted with various fluids from his journey through the ship, but he didn't seem bothered. Honey badgers were tough that way. Tay pulled up the ship's environmental controls on the data pad. Uncle Kai had taught basic ship systems to all the colony children. He said you never knew when that knowledge might save your life. Tay had complained about those lessons being boring. Now the child whispered a quiet thank you to Uncle Kai. The plan was simple but dangerous. The ship had environmental zones that could be controlled separately. If Tay could access the main control system, it would be possible to adjust oxygen levels, temperature, and even lock down specific sections. The Vex crew could be forced into certain areas of the ship, away from critical systems. Then, with the crew contained, Tay could take control. But first, the child needed to reach the environmental control hub. According to the schematic, it was 3 levels up, near the main engineering section. That meant going back into the corridors where Vex guards were still searching for them. Ready for another adventure? Tay asked Badger. The honey badger stood up and stretched, then made a low growling sound that meant he was ready for anything. They left the armory and moved carefully through the ship. Tay had learned the patrol patterns by now. The Vex guards were predictable, following the same routes. The child led Badger through maintenance corridors and storage areas where crew members rarely went. When they did encounter guards, Badger made sure they didn't cause trouble. The honey badger would charge forward with a fierce snarl, and the guards would retreat, having learned their lesson about fighting this particular Earth creature. They reached the environmental control hub faster than expected. The room was small and filled with control panels. A single Vex technician sat at one of the stations, monitoring displays. He didn't notice Tay and Badger enter. He was too focused on trying to restore power to sections of the ship that Badger had damaged. Tay picked up a piece of metal pipe from the floor. It felt heavy in the child's hands. The technician still hadn't turned around. Tay moved closer, slowly, carefully. Then the child spoke, "Don't move." The technician jumped and spun around. His yellow eyes went wide when he saw Tay holding the pipe like a weapon. They went even wider when he saw Badger, the legendary terror that had torn through half the ship's security force. You're the human child," the technician stammered. "That's right. And this is Badger. You've probably heard of him." The technician nodded quickly, his eyes fixed on the honey badger. Badger showed his teeth and made a low growling sound. The alien pressed himself back against the control panel. "I need you to do something for me," Tay said. "You're going to help me lock down sections of this ship. You're going to trap your crew in areas away from the bridge, away from weapons, and away from escape pods." "I can't do that. Commander Draxel will." Badger took a step forward. That was all it took. The technician's words died in his throat. "You'll help me," Tay said again, "or Badger will get upset. And trust me, you don't want that." The technician looked at the honey badger, then at Tay, then back at Badger. His shoulders slumped in defeat. "What do you want me to do?" Over the next hour, Tay directed the technician to systematically lock down the ship. Environmental controls changed in different sections. Oxygen levels dropped just enough to make Vex crew members dizzy and tired. Temperature controls adjusted, making some areas uncomfortably cold. Bulkhead doors sealed, creating isolated zones. The crew members panicked and moved toward areas where conditions were still normal, exactly as Tay planned. Like herding animals, the child thought. Push them where you want them to go. Commander Draxel realized what was happening too late. He was in the command center when the alerts started popping up on his screens. Section after section showed environmental anomalies. His crew was being corralled, forced into specific areas of the ship. And those areas were all near the escape pods. "Someone is controlling our systems," Draxel said. "Find them. Override the controls." His officers tried, but every command was blocked. Whoever had access to environmental control had locked everyone else out. The override codes didn't work. The backup systems were disabled. They were trapped, controlled by their own ship. Then the ship's communication system activated. Every screen throughout the vessel showed the same image. A 9-year-old human child sat in the environmental control room, holding a honey badger on their lap. The child looked directly into the camera with calm, determined eyes. "Hello, Commander Draxel," Tay said. "My name is Tay. You kidnapped me from my home. You threatened my family. You thought humans were weak because we care about our children and our animals. But you made a mistake. On New Hanseong Colony, every screen also showed this broadcast. Captain Kai stood in the command center, his mouth hanging open. Dr. Sora grabbed his arm, tears streaming down her face. Their child, their brave, brilliant child, was taking control of an alien warship. Tay continued speaking to every screen, every monitor, broadcasting across all Vex communication channels. "This is Badger. He's a honey badger from Earth. Your scans said he was harmless. Your guards learned differently. Honey badgers don't know how to quit. They don't know how to give up. They fight animals 10 times their size. They survive poison that would kill most creatures. They escape from any cage you put them in, and they protect the people they love." Badger sat calmly in Tay's lap, looking at the camera with those dark, intelligent eyes. "I learned from Badger," Tay said. "Humans might seem soft to you. We cry, we laugh. We love our families and our friends. But that's not weakness. That's strength. We protect what we love. We fight for each other. We survived on a planet full of predators by learning to live with them, to understand them, to make them our companions. We've had 5,000 years of practice turning the galaxy's most dangerous creatures into family." Tay stood up, still holding Badger. "Right now your crew is trapped in sections of your own ship. The oxygen is low enough to keep them tired but not hurt. The temperature is uncomfortable but not dangerous. I could make it worse, but I won't. That's the difference between us. You came to hurt people. I'm just defending my home." The child pressed a button on the control panel. Throughout the ship, escape pod bays opened. "You have 10 minutes to evacuate. Get in the pods and leave. My people will pick you up safely. But this ship stays here. It belongs to New Hansong now. Consider it payment for your crimes." Commander Draxel stared at his screen in disbelief. A child, a single human child and a small mammal had taken his flagship. His crew was already moving toward the escape pods, too tired and scared to fight back. Some were injured from fighting the honey badger. Others simply had no will left to resist. They had been beaten by something they couldn't understand, something that refused to follow the rules of prey and predator. "You haven't won," Draxel said into his communication system, knowing Tay could hear him. "The Vex Collective will send more ships. We will take your colony. You cannot stop us all." Tay's expression didn't change. "Then they'll learn the same lesson you did. Every ship you send, every threat you make, you'll have to face humans who refuse to quit. You'll have to face people who turn your own fear against you, and you'll have to face the creatures we've brought with us from Earth. Not just honey badgers. We have wolves. We have eagles. We have creatures you can't even imagine. All of them loyal. All of them dangerous. All of them ready to protect human children." The child leaned closer to the camera. "Tell your collective what happened here today. Tell them about Badger. Tell them about me. Tell them that humans don't surrender, not ever. And most importantly, tell them this: never trap a human child, and never ever separate them from their honey badger." The broadcast ended. Throughout the Vex flagship, crew members scrambled into escape pods. Commander Draxel stood alone in his command center for a long moment. Then he too walked toward the escape pods, defeated and humiliated by a 9-year-old and a 15-kilogram mammal. On New Hansong, the colony erupted in cheers. Captain Kai was already organizing rescue teams to retrieve the escape pods and secure the Vex ship. Dr. Sora stood with tears of pride running down her face, watching her child become a legend. 6 months had passed since what everyone now called the Badger incident. Tay sat in the colony school trying to pay attention to the teacher talking about Earth history. It was hard to focus. Through the window, the child could see the Vex flagship hanging in orbit above New Hansong. It had been turned into a museum, a reminder of what happened when someone threatened humanity. Badger lay under Tay's desk, sleeping peacefully. The school had tried to enforce a no-pets rule, but that rule changed very quickly. Badger went wherever Tay went. Nobody argued about it anymore. Some of the other students had started bringing their own animals to school. Dogs, cats, even a parrot that liked to repeat the teacher's words. If Tay could have a honey badger, they reasoned, they could have their companions too. The teacher, Ms. Park, smiled at the sleeping badger. "Tay, would you like to share with the class about your experience? I know you've told the story many times, but we have some new students who just arrived on the colony ship." Tay looked at the 3 new students sitting in the front row. They stared at the child with wide, amazed eyes. Everyone in human space knew about Tay and Badger. The story had spread across every colony, every station, every human settlement in the galaxy. "It's not that interesting," Tay said, feeling embarrassed. "Not interesting?" One of the new students gasped. You captured an alien warship. Badger did most of the work, Tay said, reaching down to scratch behind the honey badger's ears. Badger made a contented sound in his sleep. The school day ended and Tay walked home with Badger trotting alongside. The colony had grown in the past 6 months. New buildings stretched across the valley. More families had moved to New Hanseong, attracted by its new status as a protected world. The Vex Collective had officially apologized and signed a non-aggression treaty. 3 other hostile species had done the same. Nobody wanted to risk another incident like the one that made a 9-year-old human child famous across the galaxy. At home, Dr. Sora was working in her lab. She looked up when Tay entered and smiled. "How was school?" "Boring," Tay said. "Ms. Park wanted me to tell the story again. You're famous now. You'll have to get used to it." "I don't want to be famous. I just want things to be normal." Sora hugged her child. "I know, but what you did changed things. Not just for our colony, but for all of humanity. The galaxy sees us differently now." That evening, Uncle Kai came for dinner. He brought news from the galactic networks. "You won't believe this," he said, pulling up a data pad. "The Galactic Council has created a new threat classification. It's called Bonded Pair Protocol. Any human with a companion animal is now rated as extreme risk in their military databases." "That's ridiculous," Sora said. "Most companion animals are harmless." "Tell that to the Vex," Kai laughed. "They're terrified of Earth creatures now. There was an incident last week on Station Kepler, a diplomatic meeting with Vex representatives. One of our ambassadors brought her dog, a golden retriever. The Vex delegation saw it and immediately requested a different meeting room, claiming they felt unsafe." Tay couldn't help but laugh. "A golden retriever. They're the friendliest dogs ever. The Vex don't know that. To them, all Earth creatures are potential honey badgers." Kai reached down to pat Badger, who had finished his dinner and was now looking for attention. This little guy changed the galaxy's entire perspective on humanity. Later that night, Tay stood on the balcony of their home, looking up at the stars. Badger sat beside the child, also looking up as if he could see the same things Tay saw. Up there beyond those stars were thousands of species. Some of them had thought humans were weak. Some had planned to exploit human colonies. Some had seen humanity's compassion as a vulnerability. They all knew better now. Tay's communication device buzzed. It was a message from the Galactic Council. They wanted Tay to speak at a conference about human-animal bonds and their implications for interspecies relations. The child deleted the message. "Let the adults handle conferences and politics. Tay just wanted to be a kid." "Come on, Badger," Tay said. "Let's go for a walk." They walked through the colony together as the sun set. People waved at them. Children called out greetings. Everyone knew them, but most people were respectful enough to give them space. They reached the forest edge, the same place where everything had started 6 months ago. "You know what's funny?" Tay said to Badger. "They all think I'm so brave. They think I'm this amazing hero. But I was terrified on that ship. I didn't know if we would make it out. I just knew I had to try because you were trying. You never gave up, so I couldn't give up either." Badger looked up at Tay with his dark eyes. The honey badger made a soft chirping sound and pressed against the child's leg. "We're a good team," Tay said. Across the galaxy, in the halls of the Vex Collective's main council chamber, Commander Draxel stood before his superiors. He had been demoted, stripped of his flagship, and made an example of what happens when you underestimate humans. The council leaders reviewed his report for the 100th time. "A single human child," one of them said slowly, "and one small mammal defeated an entire crew of trained warriors." "Yes, council member," Draxel said, his voice flat. "And you believe humans are dangerous because of their emotional bonds?" "I believe humans are dangerous because they weaponize those bonds. They don't see companion animals as tools or property. They see them as family. And they will do anything to protect family. Any species that attacks humans must be prepared to face not just human military forces, but every creature they've brought with them from Earth. Creatures that have evolved alongside humanity for thousands of years. Creatures that are loyal, intelligent, and in many cases extremely dangerous." Another council member pulled up a video file. It showed security footage from the Vex flagship. Badger tearing through corridors. Tay taking control of ship systems, the two of them working together with perfect coordination. "This footage has been studied by every military academy in known space," the council member said. "It has changed how we view humanity. They are not a prey species. They are not weak. They are apex predators who hide their nature behind compassion and kindness. When threatened, they reveal what they truly are. What are they? Another council member asked. Survivors, Draxel said quietly. They come from a planet that tried to kill them for millions of years. They survived by being smarter, tougher, and more adaptable than anything else. They survived by making allies of the creatures that hunted them. They survived by never giving up no matter how bad things got. And they taught those traits to their children and their animals. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, the lead council member spoke. The Vex Collective will not engage with human territories. We will not threaten human colonies. We will not capture human citizens. These are now formal laws. Any Vex who violates these laws will face execution. Commander Draxel, you are dismissed. Draxel left the chamber, his career in ruins, his pride shattered. But he had learned a valuable lesson. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson, and that lesson would be remembered for generations. On New Hanseong, Tay and Badger returned home from their walk. The stars were coming out, bright and beautiful against the darkening sky. Somewhere up there, other humans were settling new worlds, exploring strange places, meeting new species. And wherever they went, they brought their animals with them. Dogs and cats, horses and birds, and yes, sometimes honey badgers. The galaxy had learned to respect that. The galaxy had learned that you don't threaten human children. You don't separate them from their companions. You don't assume their kindness means weakness, because somewhere on Earth humanity had survived the worst their planet could throw at them. They had faced predators and natural disasters, diseases and ice ages. They had looked at the most dangerous creatures around them and said, I think we can be friends. They had taken wolves and turned them into dogs. They had taken wild cats and made them purr in their laps. They had found honey badgers, the most fearless animals on the planet, and made them gentle around their children. That was humanity's true strength. Not weapons, not technology, but the ability to form bonds, to build trust, to turn enemies into allies. And anyone who forgot that lesson learned it the hard way. Tay climbed into bed that night with Badger curled up at the foot, just like always. The child thought about the future. Maybe someday there would be other threats. Maybe someday someone else would challenge humanity. But Tay wasn't worried. Humans had survived this long by being stubborn, by being smart, and by never fighting alone. Good night, Badger, Tay whispered. The honey badger made a sleepy sound and settled in for the night. Outside, the Vex flagship orbited silently, a museum piece now, a monument to an important lesson. On its hull, human engineers had painted words in every known galactic language. The galaxy learned quickly, never trap a human child or their honey badger, and the galaxy remembered.